What's up, guys? Welcome back to Inside Out Precision. I want to start this video by just mentioning how our thoughts and prayers are really with everybody being affected by this wildfire right now. We always see the news about California, and this year, the last few days have been absolutely crazy here in Oregon. Pretty much the entire Cascade Range from here in Springfield all the way north up to Portland is on fire right now. In fact, one of our employees who lives upriver, his house burned to the ground, lost everything. My boss was evacuated from his house. We know multiple customers who are displaced right now, and it's an absolute mess. The air quality is literally the worst in the world between Portland or Seattle and San Francisco. So like I said, thoughts and prayers are with everybody out there struggling with this right now. Pretty crazy times. 2020 just keeps kicking us in the nuts no matter what we do. With that being said, let's get into a little more fun subject, and that is going to be, we're going to review the Hoyt Torrex and the Hoyt Torrex XT today. I do apologize ahead of time. I usually do a chronograph test. I just tried to plug it in, and the little charger port on the chronograph is broken, so I can't, and it's dead, so I can't charge it to do a speed test. But we're going to go over all the technical specs of this bow. You know, we've sold a ton of them. I'm really familiar with it. And it's an awesome bow if you're not looking to spend, you know, $1,000+ on just the bow itself. So we're gonna start with the Torrex, just the base Torrex. So you might have been familiar in the past, Hoyt had the Power Max, and then last year about this time they came out with the Nitrix. And that was kind of like, the Power Max was, you know, like their mid-range bow. It was like $499 bare bow. You know, we sold it in a kit for like $650. And then when they came out with the Nitrix, it was kind of like an upper mid-range bow. And I've done a review on those if you want to check them out, but they actually discontinued both of those. And the reason for that is, you know, the Nitrix was like an $850 price point for the bare bow. And basically, you know, if you're gonna be spending $850 on a bow, you may as well just spend another $150 and get a flagship bow. So the Nitrix kind of fell in that weird gray area of like, people didn't want it, you know, people couldn't afford it. They were looking for a mid-range bow, but they didn't, you know, they weren't gonna not buy the flagship bow. If they had $850, they'd spend the extra $150 for a flagship bow. So what Hoyt did was come up with the Torrex. So it's a major improvement from the Power Max, although I think it's a slight downgrade from the Nitrix, and I'll get into why I think that. So let's start with the technical specs. The Torrex is 30 3/4 inches axle to axle. It has an IBO speed rating of 327, a 7-inch brace height, and comes in at 3.8 pounds physical weight. One thing that I really like that they corrected or worked on is they came up with their own cam system for this, and it's actually very resemblant of, is that even a word? It very much resembles the RX1 cam, although they don't split the bus cable on the bottom here. One thing with the Power Max, and I don't know if it was just the riser design or flex in the riser or what, but it really liked to throw a tail high tear. And you had to really kind of know all the little nuances of that bow in order to get rid of that. With these bows, they seem to have really eliminated a lot of that knock travel, and you know, pretty much you get the timing on, you get, you know, that arrow and your knock point lined up through the burger hole here, and it's usually just a matter of correcting a right or left tear at that point. You know, what makes this different from the flagship bows are really two things in general. One being that this is what they call a cast riser. So a cast riser is a riser that is, you know, molten aluminum poured into a mold that's then cooled and polished up and you know, then painted and dipped and all that. Whereas their flagship bows are what they call a billet or a machined riser, meaning it's a solid block of aluminum that they cut away from. Now the difference between those is that there's a little more flex and a little more inconsistencies, I guess you could say. And when I say little, I'm talking, you know, we're talking micrometers here. But there's a little more inconsistencies in, generally speaking, a cast riser than a billet riser. The other thing, probably the biggest thing that I noticed as well is, you know, they needed to cut the cost on this bow. So this bow comes in at, we sell it for $599 bare bow, like $850 in a kit. And one of the reasons, or one of the ways they kind of save costs on this is, you know, all their flagship bows have a machined aluminum limb pocket. This is some sort of really high density, like, I don't want to call it plastic, but maybe it is. But it's, you know, they cut costs by you know, using different materials in different places, basically. That being said, I have not seen any issues with these. I haven't seen one crack, and we've sold a ton of these. In fact, all I have are these left-handed ones now. But you get a lot of bow for the money with this. You know, shooting this with customers and tuning it, like there's a reason we're out of them, and it's because, you know, for your average shooter, they can't tell a huge difference between this and, let's say, like the Axius or, you know, one of the flagship aluminum bows. And it comes in a multitude of colors. You know, you can get pretty much any camo. You can get their flagship bows in. You can get this. This is the Keep Hammering edition. So red strings, black limbs, and the UA Barren Ground. Another feature that the Torrex has that the flagship, or that the Torrex does not have that the flagship bows do, is it has your standard cable slide here and cable guard versus the roller guard. Not really a big deal. You know, there's still a lot of bows with cable slides, but generally speaking, you know, these are gonna wear on your strings a little bit more. If you get like pitch or sap or something on this when you're hunting, it might chatter a little bit. But generally speaking, not in terms of accuracy, there's not a whole lot of difference there. One thing I've noticed in tuning these are really like wide, stout split limbs here. And with right-handed bows in particular, well, right and left, there's different limb deflections, meaning the limbs are actually different stiffnesses because all the cables connect to one side here. So on a right-handed bow, the right limb is generally stiffer than the left, or should be. On a left hand, vice versa. Right out of the box, almost all of these are gonna throw a tail right tear by about an inch. So once I get the timing set on these, before we go tune, I almost always put it in the press and do, you know, a turn or a turn and a half into the right yoke and out of the left, because I know that it's gonna rip tail right, and that's, you know, how you alleviate a tail right tear is by twisting by yoke tuning. So just something to think about if you're gonna pick one of these up. It has the same grip that was on the RX1, which I think is honestly probably one of the best grips Hoyt has ever had. I love that grip. I think it's so comfortable and just ergonomic, and, you know, doesn't fill up your hand, but it doesn't just feel like a little straight bar in the middle. It's a really nice grip. You know, it's got the string stop. I wouldn't say it's the quietest bow in the world. It's not loud, but it's not, you know, it's not as quiet as, say, like their Axius. But it's a great little bow. So if you're in the market for one, definitely go check one of these out. Now they do make another model called the Torrex XT, and I have that one right here. So this is the Torrex XT. Probably looks the exact same to you on camera, but there are some pretty key differences. So it's a little different spec-wise. So the Torrex was 30 3/4. The Torrex XT is 30 inches axle to axle. The Torrex was 327 IBO. This is 336 IBO. This has a 6-inch brace height versus a 7-inch brace height on the standard Torrex. And it actually somehow comes in at 0.2 pounds heavier, even though it's a little bit shorter. And I think that's probably because they just beef up that riser ever so slightly, just to handle that, you know, little bit of extra oomph that this delivers. Probably the biggest difference between the two is going to be that this one actually comes with the roller guard, much like their flagship bows. It's only $100 more. So the bare bow for the Torrex is $599. We sell this one at $699 and $950 in a kit. And this has been a really, really popular one as well. You know, I don't really feel any difference between this and the Torrex in terms of like the way it feels on the shot. You know, a 6-inch brace height is pretty standard for most hunting bows these days, anywhere from 6 to 6.5. So this is, you know, right in there with most flagship hunting bows. Again, comes in all the camo options, has the same grip as the Torrex, string stop. Kind of the same deal. They generally shoot, you know, left-handed bow is generally going to shoot tail left right out of the gate. Right-handed bow is going to shoot tail right. But what's nice is that there's always, well, not always, but usually very level nock travel. You know, in our kit, we sell this with like a Trophy Taker Smackdown Pro rest, so a good limb-driven rest on here, and you'll get a lot of accuracy out of it. If you follow Cam Haynes at all, you know, he got one of these bows basically like a week before we got them, and he was setting it up for one of his buddies down in Colorado, and he was shooting it at his house, and he was literally shooting as good, almost better groups with this than he was his Axius Ultra, which I thought was pretty funny. So it's a very accurate bow. Don't let the plastic limb pockets freak you out. Like I said, I've not seen, Hoyt is known for having extremely strong limbs and a very solid limb pocket system. So don't let that freak you out. Both of these bows, if you're in the market for a really high quality bow that you can get all set up for less than the cost of just one of the flagship bows, this is definitely one worth checking out. Like I said, I think it's a major upgrade from the Power Max, although I think it's a slight downgrade from the Nitrix, and that's literally just because the Nitrix had roller guards, standard, and machined aluminum limb pockets. I will mention the draw lengths. So this is the number 3 cam. This will go from 25.5 all the way to 30. They do make a number 2 cam that will go from 24 to 25. So there is an option for your shorter draw length people. You can also get them, just like any bow, in a 40 to 50, 50 to 60, 60 to 70 pound peak weight. They don't offer it in an 80, but this particular model is a 3 cam with 70 pound limbs. We sold a lot of 60s. They go up and down pretty quickly. I can get a 70 pound bow, and I wouldn't recommend this, but if need be, I can get this down to like 50 pounds. I can get a 60 pounder down to like 42 pounds. Now, obviously, when you start backing a limb off that far, you're gonna lose a lot of efficiency out of the limb. So if you're only gonna shoot 50 pounds, order a 50 pound bow. If you're never gonna shoot more than 60, order a 60 pound bow. But if you wanna shoot this bow at 65, it's only gonna be a turn and a half off from 70 to be there. So you're not gonna affect the limb angle and efficiency of that limb much by doing so. So again, I'm sorry I don't have a speed test for you guys, but if you watch my Power Max and Nitrix reviews, the Power Max was very similar to the Torrex in feet per second, and the Nitrix is very similar to the Torrex XT in feet per second. So if you watch those, you can get a pretty good idea of what these are gonna do for speed. They do make, I should note, they do make this in a long draw model. So they have an XT that'll go all the way out to 32, which is pretty sweet. A long draw length like that is kind of a blessing and a curse. We get a lot of customers that come in and they're 31, 31 and a half, 32 inches, and your bow selection just gets cut like less than half. There's probably a fifth of the amount of bows available to you when you get a draw length that long. So while you're gonna maintain great speed and be able to shoot a heavy arrow and hit hard, your bow selection goes down. So it's cool that they made this in a long draw option. So get out to your local Hoyt dealer, go shoot one of these things. I don't think you'll be disappointed. It's an awesome bow for the money. Like I said, it kind of meets that need of a budget bow that still delivers a punch and is accurate. So we've sold a ton of these. We're really impressed with them, and I think you will be too. So hope you like this video. Hope that might have cleared up some questions for you. If you have any more questions, give us a call at the shop here. Just look up our website, thebowrack.com. Our number's right there, or hit the comment section below. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It really, really helps, and we're grateful for all of the support. So as usual, guys, precision is the decision. Keep them in the middle, and I'll see you on the range.